Hi everyone, my name is Kartik and my channel is about mental models. Welcome to my 20th and last video of the Cognitive Bias mini-series. I hope that learning about cognitive biases have been beneficial for you all. In this video, I will be talking about survivorship bias. In my previous video, I looked at selection bias. Survivorship bias is a type of selection bias which disregards the unsuccessful outcomes and focuses on only the successful ones. So if you've got a bunch of outcomes and of them, these are successful and therefore surviving, and the rest of them which are these ones are unsuccessful and therefore, let's say, not surviving or lost. If you only focus here on these ones, on these scenarios, outcomes, and disregard those ones, then this is survivorship bias. The bias is created as it mistakes the visible surviving or successful subgroup as the entire group, because we've ignored the ones underneath in this example. So let's look at a couple of examples. When I was much younger, I saw successful people like Alan Sugar, Richard Branson, Bill Gates. And from seeing and learning about their success, I used to think that I should start my own business in order to be successful. And I was definitely influenced by survivorship bias, because what I didn't consider, or what I disregarded completely, was the many other people, the hundreds, thousands, millions of other people who had started a business but weren't as successful as these individuals. And so I was looking at, just as an example, the surviving group who were successful and thinking, well, anyone can be a success, or everyone can be a success, rather. So that's the first example. Example 2. Example 2 is a positive example of survivorship bias, and this is one of World War II. This example is of World War II bomber planes. And if you want more information on this, you can find out about this subject on the internet. So this is a positive example because research was conducted on World War II bomber planes to recommend places on the plane for reinforcement. So let's draw a plane. So that's a World War II bomber plane, And research was, as I say, conducted on World War II bomber planes to recommend places on the plane for reinforcement. And the team reviewed the data from all returning bomber planes or returning bombers, and identified the locations on the aircraft where they underwent the most fire. So the team understood this, and the team sort of came to the conclusion that rather than recommend reinforcing the areas that had sustained the most fire, the team proposed reinforcing other parts of the plane. The team recognized that they were reviewing data from all the returning bombers, all the returning planes, and they were returning because they could sustain enemy fire in those locations on the aircraft. But the planes that weren't returning, i.e. that were shot down, were being hit in other locations of the aircraft, which they could not sustain. The team recognized the survivorship bias, i.e. the returning bombers, and used this to good effect to make an effective decision in reinforcing the other areas of the plane that couldn't sustain enemy fire. And based on this decision, the outcome was that it indeed saved many lives. So this is a positive effect of survivorship bias. So why does this bias happen? It happens because of a basic misunderstanding. So it happens because of a basic misunderstanding of cause and effect. We see the survivors of a group, which represent the effect, and then look at their causes. How did they get there? And we incorrectly think that this is sort of a one-to-one relationship. However, the same causes may also be present in the non-survivor group, but this is not even taken into consideration because it's disregarded. And so that is one reason why survivorship bias can happen. Number 2, skewed perception. So there could be a skewed perception between two things, which is the connection between things versus the action taken of causing something. So a causal action, and there is a skewed perception between these two things, and because of that we end up with, or can end up with, survivorship bias. So these are the two main reasons, the two whys of why it happens. So how do we overcome this bias? Number 1, acknowledgement. So acknowledge the bias. Be aware of situations where the bias might influence your judgment, and where you can, try and use it to a positive effect, like in example 2 that I've shown. Number 2, alternative perspectives. Seek out different viewpoints, and seek out viewpoints from those who have faced difficulties and experienced failure, to help provide insight on the full range of outcomes and experiences. Don't just talk to the people that are sort of part of the successful group. Also try and find people that have failed and that were unsuccessful, and that will give you a more rounded view and again help to overcome survivorship bias. And whilst considering alternative perspectives, seek unbiased opinions from others who are not directly involved in the situation as well, because it's good to get a neutral, unbiased, sort of unconnected opinion too. Number 3, research. Gather information on both successful and unsuccessful cases. So it's similar to alternative perspectives, but this is not only talking to people, this is actually getting information other than speaking to people. So gather information on both successful and unsuccessful cases to provide, again, a more balanced perspective on the situation. Number 4, critical thinking. Question the assumptions you are making when analysing information and making decisions. This can identify instances of survivorship biases. So thinking critically or questioning assumptions you are making. And also question if you're missing any data points or omitting any key observations. And so sort of question your assumptions, but also question if you've got everything. And if you can do that, if you can sort of critically think in those two ways, then again, this will help to minimize or overcome survivorship bias. So there may be a few other ways, but I think these are the 4 key ways to overcome this bias. And by overcoming this bias, we can ensure that we are practicing critical thinking and making the best possible decisions. And that's all for this video, and that's all for this cognitive bias mini-series. I hope you liked this video and the mini-series. If you did, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. And why not check out one more video from earlier in the cognitive bias mini-series over here. And I will see you again in the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.